This conference will now be recorded.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to day 2 of our training. I've got a lot of cool things to show you today. We're going to talk about activating and authenticating external users and why that would be useful. We're going to show a demo of it working. We're going to hopefully get you involved in the demo. In fact, you may have already received an email from, I think it's like an admin notification from our 365 account. We have a server that is sending you this, and if you get it, it's not junk mail. You can click on the link. We'll be doing that shortly, so you might want to look for that email if you haven't received it. Joanne, were you able to send everyone the email that from the tool?
Yes, I've already added some of them. I'm just completing the list now, and they'll get the email shortly.
Great. Yeah, so today we're going to do a quick recap of yesterday. In fact, I want to ask all of you if you were able to get any of the labs done, and we'll do a quick quiz on day 1. But today we're talking about how to create processes that involve external users, and those external users can be people in your organization that are accessing the site from their cell phones, and you just want to provide an easy way to have them fill out or approve a form without having to log in. So we'll be talking about that. And then the second part of today's training is showing how to use this reusable template part, which is a common pattern. So these are two very interesting patterns, one using SMS text, the first one, and the second one using an XML template part, which we call an XTP. The XML template part has a bunch of cool features that we like to add to forms, the ability to dynamically detect data connections on load, which is super useful when you're publishing from, say, a development environment to a production environment. It also has the change history, and that gets mapped to a list. It has an admin section, debug section, a suggestion box. So there's some really cool things in that template part, and that the generic pattern of using a template part is something you'll see again tomorrow. So we use template parts to reduce the time it takes you to add these features to your forms. And then we'll also touch on debugging Q rules and how to do that so that you know if you went through a lab yesterday and you weren't able to get it to work, we have techniques for helping you investigate why it doesn't work. Okay, so going forward. So let's do a quick quiz on day 1. First of all, did anyone, let's see, I'm just going to go through and ask, Arthur, were you able to get any of the labs done?
No, actually, I hadn't time to do this. I will try this on the weekend.
Great, and I won't bother you with some of these questions. Maybe I will. But Athena, were you able to look at any of the labs?
No, we weren't able to do any of that yet because we had the stuff installed later on that afternoon.
Okay, yeah. Okay, and I guess we have David. David, were you able to look at any of the labs from yesterday?
Yeah, I had done some of them in the past. I had done lab 1 and lab 2, lab 3, I believe. I don't believe I actually ended up doing lab 4, but I did do the first 3 a while back.
Did you have any questions on those labs?
No, they were answered throughout yesterday's demo.
Awesome. And Lisa, what about you? Did you have any time to spare to look at those labs?
Oh, no, unfortunately not.
Okay. Just let us know if you have questions. So let's just ask a few random questions to you based on yesterday's presentation. Question number 1 here: how does FormsViewer improve InfoPath? I think I'll throw that at you, Kira, if you don't mind. Do you want to respond to the first question?
I guess a lot of the new features, certain things that we went over yesterday, like the PDF upload.
Yep, great.
Yep.
Thanks for answering the first question. Yeah, so we're not only removing the dependency of InfoPath for the InfoPath form services and the filler, but we're also adding these new features, like you said, the PDF generation and the features that were featured in the labs yesterday, as well as today, and we're going to be showing more features tomorrow and the next day. So let's, you already mentioned a couple of them. What are other new FormsViewer features out there? Let's ask, I guess, what are you particularly interested in, Judith? And I know you may have mentioned this at the end of the call yesterday, but PDF generation is definitely one of them. Can you think of any other features that we covered yesterday that stood out?
No, I missed most of yesterday, so the only one that I did see was the PDF printout, which is going to be very helpful for us for some of the applications that we already have in production.
Excellent. David, do you have any features that you can think of that we covered yesterday that besides PDF?
I think the transform feature, where you can basically clear out the form and start a brand new one right then and there without closing it out. I think that's going to be very helpful in the future.
That's great.
I think we might have a project we could use that for. I don't know off the top of my head, but I could definitely see that being something very useful in the future. Wonderful.
And then we also showed other commands yesterday, like the submit to SharePoint list. We showed how to save an attachment to a library and actually create a folder in that library where the attachments go. Those were really cool techniques, and those commands get used a lot. In fact, I would say the submit to SharePoint list command, this is the command that takes data in a repeating table or a section and maps it to a child list. That's probably the #1 QRules command of all of our customers. We've got thousands of people using QRules, and it is the #1 reason why most of them bought QRules to begin with, was to extract the data in repeating sections. And the save to SharePoint command is super useful too, for two reasons. One, because it reduces the size of the form, which isn't a huge deal nowadays, because if it's all on the server, you just see the HTML come across the wire and you don't have to worry about pulling down a 10 megabyte attachment. But there's another reason that it's useful, and that is because people can then go and they can edit the attachment without opening up the form, or they can do something and version the attachment without reopening the form. The form contains or retains a link to that attachment. So that's another cool way to increase collaboration with your form processes. So that's the quick quiz yesterday. Are there any other questions for us before we move on? Okay, so we're going to do the demo, Joanne, if you're ready. I'm going to make you presenter.
Okay.
Great.
Okay. So can you hear me okay?
Yep, loud and clear, and I can see your screen too.
Okay, so I'm really excited to demo this topic for today. It's activating and authenticating external users. So to start off, I'm going to launch this first form that we're going to show you. It's actually a part of a 3-form solution. So imagine that you have a new form solution that you want your external users to access. And those external users, of course, doesn't have access to your internal SharePoint site. And you want to invite them in to participate in your solution, right? Or fill out the form. So this first form template that you're now seeing in my screen is called the user's dashboard. This is where we're going to enter the user information, basic information, just like what you're seeing now. Your names are already in here. We've entered them here, and your email addresses are in here. And when I've entered that, it's going to send you the email. So I'm just going to show you how that works now. Okay, so for those of you who have received this email, that the form just sent you via flow. Let's go into, okay, to submit that. And that is submitted to a users list. So this is the users list, and you see that your accounts here are still pending. I've already entered you there, but some of you may have not received or may have not checked their email yet. So this is my account, so it's pending. So I should have received my email by now. There you go. Okay. So you should receive, oops, that's not the one I'm looking for. Maybe this is the one. Okay. So it's telling me to click the link below to open the activation form, and I'm required to enter a mobile number for verification. So click here. Okay, so asking me to enter my email address. And by the way, this should be the exact email address that is entered in the user's dashboard because it's case sensitive, okay? So you should enter the exact or your correct email here. So if I click confirm, it's going to ask me to select my country code. So I'm in the Philippines. I'll select +63 and my actual phone number. Okay, so when I click confirm, it's going to send an SMS text message to my mobile number, and I will show you my phone screen right now so you can see that I received that code. Okay, please bear with me, I'm still connecting. So I'm mirroring my phone in my desktop. So this is an Android phone. So that's my phone screen. So if I click confirm now, I should be getting an SMS text for the code that I need to enter here to activate my account, right? So it should be here, should pop in right now. Okay, so it says my verification code is 0883. Okay, so let's enter that 0883 and click activate. Okay, so it says my account is activated and it's displaying that confirmation message. So after your account is activated, you'll see here that from the users list, okay, it is changing my status to activated right there. And you'll see that the mobile number here in this column, this is the phone number, it's encrypted, and that's not displayed. So users are not going to see that mobile number, right? So after your account is activated, if you receive that email earlier that we sent you, just grab that. The email that we sent you with the package. This is the link with the app only equals to true, meaning that you can access our internal SharePoint site even though you don't have login credentials to our site. So if you click on that, you're going to be presented with a FormsViewer value prop survey. So because our account is already activated, it's going to look for our email and search for that in the users list and check if it matches. Just click confirm. Okay, it's asking me to enter the last 4 digits of my phone. And again, I'm going to receive the code via SMS. Just waiting for that. Okay. Confirm. And I'm not able to fill out the survey. So this is just a very simple survey asking how can we better serve you, and you can multi-select the answers here. You can read the questions first, right? Okay, so just selecting here randomly and clicking submit. Okay, so once the survey is submitted, it's going to be saved in this FormsViewer survey XML forms library. And you'll see that my survey is submitted here, right there. Okay, so anyone who wants to participate in this demo, they can do what I just did. Click the link from the email that you received, and if you want to participate and use your mobile okay, some of you have already activated your account. I can see some of you, Judith, Bergar activated, and David, thanks for doing that. So I'm guessing most of you are already activating their account now.
One thing I noticed, on my iPhone, the layout for the user, I guess it's the user information form, it's weird. There's like, it doesn't look very good. And I know we've done this many times in the past, so it must be just for the form that we deployed for training. We might want to check that. But if those of you are trying to fill this out on your phone and you're seeing some formatting issues like I did, those are easy to fix. So you probably didn't see them, Joanne, because your Android didn't have that problem. But we definitely want to fix that user info form to make it more iPhone friendly. Did anyone else have those issues that I'm talking about? Specifically, the email field was extending beyond the length of the screen, and the drop down for the +1 or plus, I guess, Armenia. We need to add Armenia in there as well for Arthur. Maybe he doesn't have a drop down option, but the drop down had the text, it was too large. Did anyone else see those issues?
I'm just trying to find the email for Athena myself. I can't find it in the spam or in our inbox, so.
It may be, it may be like, yeah. So that was, who was that? Sorry.
This is Deanna, sorry.
Yeah. Let's just check her email, Joanne, and see if we got that correctly entered.
It looked right. I was looking at it on the screen.
You mentioned Deanna is having problems?
Yes, we haven't not received the email, and I looked in our spam folder too. It's not in there either for me to release.
Well, let's just share out we can't share out the link because the email actually has a code in there, an ID for you, so it's specific to your account, so it's checking. But we could probably put the links in chat if we have them. Do you have the links, Joanne?
The app only link?
The link to open the user info form. That they're not getting the emails, probably because it's getting filtered out. Do you have the emails in like a sent folder that you can forward to them, or just share the links in the GoToMeeting chat? Just wondering.
Let me just try this link here.
Yeah, but that's going to be different for each person. So we're going to do you have the ones for?
For
maybe
the
it isn't different. Let's take a look at the link. Does it have a user ID at the end of it, or is it just blank? Yeah, it does. It has ID 19.
No.
Might be a problem. But you could change the ID and put the link in the chat window. Do you know what their IDs are going to be? If you go into the users list, it's probably the same, right? Go to the users list and see if you're 19 or not.
Yeah, I'm 19, and
okay, so
Deanna
just
is
paste the same link into the chat,
okay.
and just put an 18 or 15 for Deanna, and then they can use the link from the GoToMeeting to authentic to fill it out. Workaround, Deanna. Sorry about that.
That's okay.
So it looks like the actual survey form, though, looks pretty good on my iPhone. Is anyone else using an iPhone?
Hi, this is Kiara. The survey form looks fine on my iPhone.
Great. Great. So it was just the user info form that was kind of wonky. And so while we're filling this out, we're going to switch back and we'll talk about what we just saw and why it was useful. And then I'll switch back to Joanne, and she'll actually walk you through deploying these forms to your environment. Now, the really cool thing about this solution is that you can deploy this. This dashboard is kind of a what you call a first generation one. It doesn't have paging, and there's some other limitations. And so it's not a great solution right now for thousands of users, but I think you can all see that this solution may actually be quite useful for a number of scenarios. And I want you to think about the scenarios for a second while I'm sharing my screen again. Specifically, there's, I think, at least 2 scenarios that are interesting. And so if you were able to get the link working and fill out the surveys, we'll come back to the library in a second and talk about that. But I want to just quickly highlight once again what we saw. So hopefully you can see my screen again. Joanna, can you see my screen?
Yeah, I can see your screen, Patrick.
Great. Yeah, so there's these 3 different kind of swim lanes, so to speak. The first step is the admin adds a bunch of people to this user add dashboard form. And like I said, we need to add paging to that dashboard form and make it a little more scalable. But right now, it works pretty well for 20, 40, even 100 people. And then when they add the people, we click submit, and the form will submit the data to a web service, DBXL, which has email notifications in it and sends email notifications to you. Now, for the purpose of the lab, deploying the form, for those of you who do not have DBXL, I think, Lisa, you're the only one with DBXL. Maybe, Judith, you guys have DBXL, I'm not sure. But we have a flow, we have another option here, and I didn't put this in the slide, but there's another option, which is flow. You can also send the emails. So if you don't have DBXL, don't fret. There's another way to do it, and we've documented flow as being the default for the lab, but this slide just shows the DBXL. But anyway, this is the same process. It's going to email the users that email that you didn't get if you're Deanna's team, but the email is really simple, and you can change the way it looks to make it more less susceptible to getting caught by the spam filter. But it has a link in it, and the users then take that link, and this is the second process. So the users get that email, they click on the link, and the link, they enter their email information, and then the form, the user info form, which is connected, when they click on the link, it opens the user info form, which is the second form in the pattern. That form then texts them via Twilio. So Twilio is a SMS text as a service provider on in the internet, and what Twilio does is it sends text messages to people. And we're using our Twilio account for this demo, so you'll have to replace our Twilio account with your Twilio account. We'll talk about that tomorrow. We have a lab on that. But for today's demo, everyone's using our Twilio account. And Twilio takes that phone number and texts the user, and then they enter the code, and then we know it was them that opened the form. And so we encrypt that phone number back. So we know that that phone number represents that user. So this second swim lane is really connecting the user to the phone number and then encrypting that information using the encrypt command. So this is another QRules command in FormsViewer that is very useful, encrypt, and then stores it in SharePoint. And that's the SharePoint list that you saw, the users list that Joanne displayed a few moments ago. And then finally, once the user has been activated, now they can take part in any form process that uses that. And we'll show them tomorrow how we can add this XTP for Twilio, the reusable template part, to every single form that you want to use this process in. And then the user opens up the form, the survey form in this case, via link. They enter their email or their phone number, it texts them, it knows who they are, and they're able to fill out the form. So this is all external. So you're able to fill this out on our 365 site because FormsViewer supports external access, which is wonderful. Microsoft actually used to have these public pages that they provided for your 365 account, and they took that away in May of last year. But using this app only equal true mode with FormsViewer, you can actually make your forms available to people that are outside of your tenant. In other words, they're external, and they can log in, fill out your forms, and that you can even do it. It doesn't have to be at the beginning of the process. It can also be later on in the process if you use this kind of an SMS technique. So passwords are really kind of old now, logins and passwords. That's like so 2010, right, or 2005. Nowadays, everyone's using their cell phones for authentication. And really what we want to show in this demo, in this lab, is how to upgrade your forms to using this better, more secure system. So why is it more secure? Well, number one, it's because there's no login, there's no password. So there's no password to guess, right? If there's no password to guess, it can't be hacked the same way emails and logins can be hacked today. So there's no password at all. It's also connected to their cell phone, which these days has biometric face recognition or finger recognition, So it's more secure in that regard as well, because the person has to log into their phone first before they get the text code. And then third, we're only sending it to them when we need them to fill out the form. So it's very time sensitive and restricted. And there's like a timeout. If they don't enter the code within 60 seconds, or maybe it's a minute and a half, then we say, no, you have to do it again. So this improves the security of your form. So it's actually more secure than SharePoint. I know this is kind of counterintuitive, but it is true. It is more secure because of these reasons. So then the other benefit of this solution is that if you have a lot of people out there that you need to participate in an online form, but you don't want to give them a login because there's so many of them, right? And maybe you're doing a survey and you've got thousands of people. So this is a very useful technique for doing that without having to pay a license fee to Microsoft for each one of these logins, because you're not using a login, you're just using this registration process. But moreover, we'll see tomorrow that this actually streamlines the process for people that are on the go. So if people are trying to approve a form on this, not so much of a streamlining for people who are filling out a form, because filling out a form may require a desktop. You want to be more productive. You don't want to use your phone for filling out forms. But for people that need to approve forms, or who are downstream in the process and they need to add some comments, then it's very easy for them to open up the form on the go when they have their phone and log in without having to go through the SharePoint login. And what we'll see tomorrow is further streamlining, so we can actually take away the email and even take away the authentication code, because we can just text them the link to open up the form, and if they open it up within a certain amount of time, say a minute, we know they opened it up. There's no way they could have forwarded it to somebody else and had that person open it up, and if they did, they'd be complicit. So it's a very nice technique for taking your forms to the next level, which is using cell phones integration for authentication. Okay, any questions on that? We're going to go back to see who filled this out. In fact, I think I might even have Joanne. Do you want to add anything to that explanation?
No, I think you explained it very well, Patrick. I can just explain it.
Oh, well, I'm not sure I did. I just want to make sure I still have audio here. Did anyone have any questions? Let's just pick on Lisa. Lisa, did that make sense?
Yes, totally. Thank you.
Cool. So I'm going to go back to the users list and we'll just see. It looks like Deanna, you're still not in the system, but did anyone from your organization get in? Just wondering. I guess it's just you and Athena today, but anyway, hopefully those links. Did we paste the links in the chat, Joanne?
Yeah, the link for Deanna is in chat, and we changed the ID so you can access it.
Great. Yeah, so Deanna and Athena, if you have time and you want to do that, you can use those links for now as a workaround for the fact that you didn't get an email. So we're going to go through the lab in a second. We're going to switch back to Joanne, and she's going to talk about how to deploy this to your environment. But I want to just quickly also talk about a couple more things. We talked about why this is cool. Maybe we should also talk about why this may not be a good solution. Let's see if I can get my mouse back. I want to share out my screen here, but hopefully you can see this. So a couple of reasons why this is not perhaps useful. So we're trying to come up with a reason why this might not be useful. Okay, so I don't know. I mean, right now, you know, it's not really, you know, people have email, people need to be able to email people using their 365 accounts. Okay, well in that case, yeah, they need their email. But a lot of external users will have their own email, Gmail or Hotmail. So there's kind of a workaround there as well. For document storage, OneDrive is open to the public. For reporting, most of the time external users don't need to access charts because they're probably not decision makers, and typically reporting is something that you'll be pushing to people who are trying to make decisions about the health of a process. Anyway, so I'm trying to come up with reasons why this solution may not be a good fit for certain processes, and I'm having a hard time doing it. You know, it's just really such a cool pattern that I think it's very useful for a lot of even forms that are not necessarily externalized. You have your own team that they all have logins. You're still going to probably want to use this kind of a technique in the future to streamline access. Okay, so my machine is having a little bit of a consternation here. But hopefully I can go ahead here, and I'm going to switch back to Joanne in a second. But first, we're encrypting phone numbers for extra security. It kind of makes sense. We don't want people to feel like their phone numbers will get stolen. I think that's pretty awesome or obvious. So this all came available to people because of these technology developments over the last 30 years or 40 years. We had emails in the 80s, we had web pages in the 90s, we had XML web services in 2000s, InfoPath forms took advantage of those XML web services, and nowadays we have smartphones. We developed DBXL in 2007. Flow has been around now for 4 or 5 years, so there's notification technologies out there. Twilio came on the scene in 2011, and now FormsViewer is an app that upgrades your form and allows you to do that, and that's been out since 2014. So we're going to walk through how to add this to your forms, and that's Lab 2. So Joanne, I'm going to switch back to you. Any questions on this?
Okay.
We are taping. Once Joanne's done with the, Joanne, go ahead and take the presenter back yourself. I'm having a hard time clicking on your name, so go ahead and, you're an organizer, I think you can do it. Go ahead and steal the presenter baton from me. And then I'll mute myself in a second, but I just want to let people know that we do have a break coming up. We're going to take a break after Joanne is done with the quick show and tell of the lab.
Okay, so I'm going to just explain what the form template does. So this is the user's dashboard, the first template that we showed you earlier. So as you can see, this is a very simple form. It's just a repeating table that allows you to enter the user's info with several columns here for entering those information. And if we just look into the submit button rules here, there are several rules here, just generating IDs and submitting this user's info to a list. So that's the user's list. And in order to complete the deployment process for this form, you have to get the STP for the user's list and add this STP to your root site and create a custom list using this user's list, just like what you did when you deployed the expense report yesterday, if you remember that. Okay, so that is this form is going to submit to that list. And how are you going to do that? So if you remember yesterday, we showed you how we can use FormsViewer to submit to lists. And this is the forms designer for that user add form. And if we just show you here the SharePoint list mappings, I have here my mapping. To load the mapping by now. Okay, so that's the user's list, and this is just mapping those fields to my columns, right? So this is a repeating group, so that is checked. So it's like a quick recap of what happened yesterday. So this is the mapping for this form. And then this rule here is just submitting the data into dbXL. So if you're not using 365 online, you can use dbXL as an alternative to that to submit your data into SQL. And that's what that rule is for. And just checking if it's failed or successful, it will prompt for saying that you have successfully submitted new users. Okay, so that's the user's dashboard. Any questions on this form before I jump into the second form? No questions? Okay, you feel free to chat in your questions, and maybe I can answer that later, or Kirby will jump into to answer your questions. She's already also familiar with this process. So switching now to the user info form. So this is the form that you accessed when you click the link via email. So you were asked to enter your email address here, and just show you the rules here. So this is just validating your email and quickly changing the state to enter your number. So it's showing that this section now to ask you to enter your country code and your mobile number, right? So we view the rules here after you confirm. It's just validating if those fields are completed and combining the phone numbers, combining the country code and your mobile number, and encrypting that number. So this is what Patrick talked about earlier about the encrypt command, and that is why the where's my, yeah, the phone number is encrypted because we encrypted that using the QRules command. So that is the command right here. And just for simplicity, I actually created another form just to show you how encrypt and decrypt command works. So I'll just show you here really quick how this works. So when you enter your phone number, for example, okay, and so before you decrypt, you need to enter a password, and that password is provided in a default FormLogic XML. So that's the password in the form template. So I want to enter a really strong password like this, and click encrypt. So you see that my mobile number is already encrypted. And if I want to decrypt that, I'll just enter again the password and click decrypt. So that is the QRules encrypt and decrypt command. And you can also see this execution history from QRules saying that the command ran successfully. Yeah, so it makes the form secure because only the admin has access to the form template, to download the form template, and your users won't be able to access that encryption password.
And if they forget the password, go ahead.
Say it again, Patrick.
Oh, I think I was going to say that if they forget the password, it's game over because the passwords aren't stored anywhere. And I mean, that encryption password is really important, that you either put it in your XSN as we see here, and it's not available to the people to, like if you were worried about somebody getting that password and decrypting all of your phone numbers, they would have to download the XSN, but they'd have to be a site collection admin to do that. Just in the form itself, there may be a way for them in the browser, I don't know, to go into debug mode or something. So there might be a better way to even hide that password by putting it somewhere and querying a location. Or anyway, this is not a completely foolproof technique. I just want people to know that is the case. Specifically, if you do put the password in the XSN like we have here, there may be the possibility that somebody could look at the HTML source and find it, but then they would have to create a form to decrypt the passwords. They have to create a form with QRules in it. So it's very complex. In order to decrypt these passwords or these phone numbers, they'd have to actually create a sample form like what Joanne has, load the data from the users list, somehow hack the password via the HTML source. So to prevent that, you can basically take the password out of the XSN and put it somewhere else, and then they wouldn't be able to access it. The other point to make out here is that if you forget the password, like you put it somewhere else and you forget it, you can't decrypt that because we're using, I think, a pretty strong hash code for the encryption, or I forget what the code is, but it's like an SHA encryption technique. So just be careful, right? If you do encrypt a whole bunch of data, make sure that you store those encryption keys somewhere, because we're not going to. FormsViewer doesn't store them anywhere. They either have to be in your XSN, or you have to take responsibility. And if they're in your XSN, there's a small possibility that somebody could probably access them. In this case, it's not super sensitive. It's phone numbers, but just keep that in mind. We have a lot of customers using encryption for sensitive things, and the onus, the responsibility is on you to manage that. We just provide the technique. Sorry, Joanne, I just wanted to make that point.
No problem. Thanks for clearing that, Patrick. Okay, so after the form encrypted the phone number, it will submit to list using that submit to SharePoint list command again, and it will trigger the sending of verification via Twilio. So it's triggering this send verification field to go, and that field is in our form logic. So as you can see, we're always centralizing our rules under this form logic. So here under send verification, we're just determining the verification code. So it's just building that registration code here, and then creating a timeout. So it's adding seconds. After under 20 seconds, like 2 minutes, your code is already expired, right? So you won't be able to use that code. So you have to we have to resend again the link for you to activate again. So after setting the expiration, that message value. So here you're just going to put in your Twilio account ID. That's why we specifically noted in the documentation that you have to have your own Twilio account. You can't use our account, of course. So you have to register on Twilio website and create your own Twilio account in order to register and then use in this form. So,
and there is a free version available. I think that you don't need a credit card to register in Twilio, and you'll get 1,000 text messages for free. So if you're interested in trying this out, you can go to Twilio and just sign up. It takes a few minutes. In fact, I think we have that in the documentation for tomorrow. There's like 2 pages on how to register on Twilio. And then once you start using Twilio more, like we're using it now quite a bit, and we spend maybe $10 a month for 1,000 or more text messages. It runs between 1 and like 5 cents, depending on the number of texts you send. And so just keep that in mind. It's very inexpensive, and it's a great technique. But I just want to make you aware of the disclaimer that there is money involved. So don't forget.
Okay, so the important thing is that you place your Twilio account ID and Twilio phone number. So we're setting that right here on finish loading. Let me show you. Qdabra rules, finish loading, set config value. So there's our account ID and Twilio phone number. So you have to replace that with your own Twilio account, right? So so the next one is just concatenating the message. So this is the message you received via SMS. Your verification code is, so this code. Then trigger for the send SMS. So this is the actual sending of SMS using the Twilio API. So we have an XML data connection for this Twilio. So let's look for that at trigger send SMS. So this is that field. So it's just simply building the request body that we're going to use for the make request command. So this make request command is a QRules command, also in FormsViewer available. And it's used for making requests for APIs such as Twilio or Google Analytics. So whichever API you want to integrate your info platform to, you can use this make request command for that. So it's a really, really awesome alternative for programming. So if you're not a programmer, you can use FormsViewer and QRules to send your request to those APIs. Right, so this is just making use of these parameters, the path for the API Twilio, account ID, and using the method parameter. And the rest is just setting the content types and the request body. Okay, so that's the main request.
Sorry, John, just one more quick comment here. This is a great example of how FormsViewer integrates with these new JSON-based web services, so you can upgrade your forms to take part in the web that we know today, where you have all these big data APIs out there, or service APIs like with Twilio, And you can access them now. Even REST APIs that you submit to can be accessed using FormsViewer. Even though InfoPath doesn't support that out of the box, we upgrade your forms to allow them to access those APIs using the make request command.
Mm-hmm. Great. So that's the make request. And then after you receive that code via SMS, you will enter it here and click activate, right? So this activate button is just checking if the code is blank, if code is of course if it's expired, or if it's also checking if attempts exceeded. And the attempts, the number of attempts is being set here, hard-coded. So the number of attempts is maximum verification attempts is 4. So if they exceeded that, they won't be allowed to proceed, right? So this checkbox here is checked. Don't run remaining rules if the condition of this rule is met. So that means they exceeded their attempts. So code mismatch, another validation here. And then if everything else is okay, if the code is okay and correct, then the status of the form is changed from pending to activated. So that's why it's going to submit now to the list and update that column from pending to activated. And if you are on DebXL on-prem, you can also have this rule to submit this form to DebXL. And let me show you that real quick here. So this is the user info form in DebXL. So you're going to upload the user info form in DebXL and set up the email here, right here. So all of the steps in setting up and configuring this email is in the documentation that we provided in the lab. So if you have time later, you can just check on that for the steps. Then next is just checking if it's successful. It's showing this call prompt command via Q rules, and then showing this successful message. Oops, sorry. Yeah. So that's the user info. Then any questions on that so far? Okay. So the next or the last form that we showed you is this FormsViewer survey form. And this is the actual form that we want the users to access. So since you're already activated, it's just going to check your email address here. That's why we asked you to enter that. And just quickly show you again the rules here. It's just validating if your email address is indeed in the users list, querying that users list, and setting some users info here. And then you're also again asked to enter the last 4 digits of your phone number. And this is just basically the same form logic that is used in users info, sending verification via Twilio. And once you receive that SMS, clicking confirm here will just check if that code is blank or expired or attempts exceeded. So basically the same format and logic, right? So the different thing here is just this is a survey form. So you're seeing here a repeating table for the question and the answer. And you notice that it's just showing one question and one answer for that question. It's because we're using default values for that. If you just see here, my main data source, it's using a normalized data source, right? And if you go to data, default values, you'll see the values right here. So this contains the questions in the text field, right? So you can also customize this using your own questions and answer if you want to customize this as your own survey form. If you want to change it, you can access the template XML. So the way I change it is I go to File and click Publish and Export Source Files. So once I've exported that, you will get this all of the files for your form template, and you will look for this template.xml, and you will open that in a notepad, and you'll see here this is the default data that I have in my info pack form, right? So if I want to add another answer, I just copy in the answer element down here and just enter another text or different answer, right? So you can customize this and then save it again. And then once you save that, go back to that source folder and search for this manifest.xsf file. Right click on that and design mode, and then resave it as a new .xsn file. Yeah, so that's the survey form. And clicking submit will just submit this to the form library here. Okay, so if you want to access the lab, it's in this folder. So all of the 3 templates are already here: the user ad, user info, user process. And if you want to just check how you can deploy this to your own site, just open that PDF file. Okay, here. So it says that it requires, if you're on SharePoint Online, you need to use Flow for the email. And of course, FormsViewer and SMTP account for sending the email to external users. And of course, the Twilio account is the most important thing. Optional is also, if you're on-prem, you can use dbxl to deploy this form. So step 1 is setting up the library and list. Like I said, you need to get those STPs in this folder and upload that to your site and create a library and list out of that custom STPs. And then after you've done that, upload the XSN files to your FormsViewer. So you go to Manage Templates, click Upload Template, and upload those 3 templates in your FormsViewer. And then if you're on dbxl, you need to change the link in the user ad form. So the steps are right here. You will go to the main data source and find this field here. Let me just show you where's that. This is the user info form. No, user ad, sorry, I'm in the wrong template. Okay, so this is the user ad, so trigger and then set values and submit to dbxl. So this is the link that you're going to change if you're on dbxl. So this part here, you need to change that, and you need to follow this guide to get that link from your FormsViewer. Right. So after that, step 3, you need to configure the form library to use the FormsViewer extensions app for modern UI. So you've learned that yesterday using the FormsViewer extensions app to link that library to your FormsViewer template. So you can open the form in the library using FormsViewer. And step 5 would be creating notifications using Flow in SharePoint via Flow. So the steps are already in here. I just want to quickly show you how it looks like. So this is my flow for that user info process, right? So so when an item is created or modified in this list, users list, and it has this condition checking if the status value is equals to pending. So that's the status of the user. If it's pending, meaning if it's entered in the user's dashboard, so if yes, it will send an email. So this is an SMTP email. So of course you will fill this out using which email you want to use. And this is a dynamic email, and we get that from the list, that column email. And then here you will change this part to use the app only link in FormsViewer. So you will go to FormsViewer and just show you right here, and click this open form anonymous link and copy that link, because that's the app only link, meaning that link can be accessed from outside of your internal system, right? So where am I? I'm in my flow. Okay, so after changing that link, you need to set this value to yes. So setting to HTML, because we're using HTML for the body. Okay, and it's just using dynamic first name and then ID here, and getting that value from the users list columns. Now after you set that up, there's another condition here that's checking if it's activated, and it's just sending the email to the user telling him that the account is already activated. So that's flow, and you're almost done. Once you've finished that, so this is another step for setting up DBXL. Like I said, this is optional. If you're on-prem and using DBXL, you can set this up, upload the XSN as a document type to your DBXL, and configure the PDF or the email tab for sending the email. Okay, so these other steps are for DBXL. And then lastly, just test your form, just like we showed you how to test it. Okay, so that's the end of this lab.
That's great. Wonderful. Very comprehensive explanation, Joanna. That was wonderful. I just want to make a few comments. First of all, you're getting extra training here with Flow and DBXL. So for those of you who are not familiar with Flow, Flow is Microsoft's new replacement for workflow, and it's very cool. It's very visual. Some things are kind of tricky, but you can see this flow is pretty simple, with the exception perhaps of the email body, with the HTML there being a little bit tricky. But the other thing I want to mention is DBXL is a web service that we built back in 2004. It was our first accelerator that we built to help consulting projects, reduce time and effort to building scalable projects. And what DBXL does is it takes large solutions, so forms where you've got more than 5,000 submits per year. SharePoint doesn't handle large-scale data very well, and so we basically created this web service to map your data to SQL, and that's what DBXL is. DBXL takes an XML data and it maps into SQL, so you can do very scalable reporting and very scalable collection of data. For most forms, you're going to just use SharePoint because they're not, I think that a lot of processes out there today don't have a huge requirement for data collection. Some of them do. I think David and Judith, you have a process there that is collecting a lot of data. I'm not sure if that's going through DBXL or not, but the DBXL is an option for those forms, those form processes that need to collect, you know, hundreds of thousands of records, because it will scale. The other benefit of DBXL is that it's over the years we've added a lot of features to it, and now it supports, you know, querying data. Querying is very fast compared to SharePoint, and we support notifications, as you just saw. We also support printing PDF through DBXL, but you don't need that because you've got FormsViewer. So there's a bunch of other features in DBXL. There's about 100 different web methods, and it was our first accelerator, like I said, back in 2004. We've got quite a few customers on it, hundreds of them, obviously. But if you have, I know, Lisa, you've got DBXL installed. You can actually, even though you're 365, you can use DBXL if you want, or use Flow. I would use Flow because that's going to be perhaps more interesting in your scenario, but you could use both, like we show in the demo. And then even for people that are on-prem, if you have a gateway to 365, you can use Flow. So in Arthur, in your case, I know you're on-prem, and I don't know if you've got a 365 account or not, but you could set up Flow if you had a gateway. And you can also install DBXL, which is a free, it's a free installation, and then after, I think, 3 months, we ask you to purchase a license, but it's pretty inexpensive, and I'm more than happy to talk more about that if you're interested in that. Let's just go around the table really quick before our break, because we're going to take a break now, but I want to just get your quick feedback on this. Thanks for your patience going through this today. Let's go bottom up first. Let's ask Lisa. Lisa, any comments or feedback on this pattern today, this first lab?
Nope, not really. Just kind of taking it all in. Just looking forward to kind of going through the labs so it sticks.
Okay, awesome, thanks. Judith, any comments from you? Makes sense.
Our biggest challenge here right now is that Flow has not yet been released to the government tenant. So as much as we want to be able to start using it and leveraging it, we don't have word yet as to when that's going to be released.
Do you have DBXL still? I mean, do you have? I know you had it when you were on-prem.
Yeah, we have it on-prem. I actually do have to check to see if we got it this last round, because the things that we were using it, the forms that we were using FormsViewer for this round don't actually store data. So we may not have purchased it. So, but that's something that I will be revisiting soon.
Yeah, we can definitely renew that for you. Just let us know. Yeah. I'll give you another free license for a number of months if you want. Yeah. It's, you know, like I said, it really, I guess in your case, it could be a replacement for Flow. But normally we use DBXL for those like high scale solutions that really,
and we don't have many here that require that many submissions. So yeah, but we'll see. We'll figure that out.
So the other thing, now just to keep in mind that not all hope is lost, because tomorrow we're going to show you how to send text messages instead of Flow. So, I mean, we're doing this SMS text anyway. Well, why are we doing Flow? Because we already have their phone number, right? Right. So tomorrow we're going to take this a little step further, and it will make more sense for your scenario tomorrow. You won't need to worry about Flow or DBXL.
Okay, perfect.
Deanna, any comments or feedback?
No questions or anything right now, but I'm really loving this whole authentication thing, and I see a lot of uses for it in our environment. And people will absolutely love being able to approve things. We have a lot of things for approvals, so I think they'll love to be able to do this from their phone.
Yeah, and the approval demo is tomorrow too. The pattern or the actual form that we demo tomorrow shows this approval step, which is really it's really meant for that, because obviously if they're on their phone, they're not going to be typing in a whole lot of information. Now, I'm just going to put a little feeler out there. This year, we are working on using these smart speakers, these smart assistants, right? So you got Alexa, you got you got Siri, you got Google Assistant. So this year, we actually are working, one of our patterns this year that we're building is the ability to fill out the form automatically from your phone using voice. So we're adding that to FormsViewer this year. So this is kind of preview. We haven't actually done it yet, but we're committed to adding the smart speak to your forms. And we're actually designing a feature right now. So just keep that in the back of your mind. Down the road, later this year, we'll have the ability, we'll be doing webinars and show you how to fill out forms using a dialogue with your phone. So you can imagine that for these simple scenarios like approval or adding comments and approving or rejecting, that's our first use case, looking at those simple scenarios, but we're going to extend it beyond that. So for short forms, the assistant will walk you through it. And we can do that because Microsoft has cognitive APIs now, cognitive services. Google, of course, has AI services for Assistant, and of course, Amazon does as well. I don't know if Apple is providing an API to Siri yet or not. I mean, they must be doing that because a lot of app developers. But we're going to be looking at Microsoft Cognitive Services first, and it doesn't really matter which one we use, but we'll be providing a solution for FormsViewer. And it's really going to be using the same kind of techniques, using this make request, but we're going to build a lot of stuff into FormsViewer so you can have like headers and footers and the dialogue. The assistant will come online and say, hey, this is a survey form. Hello, Deanna, here you go. Would you like to fill this out? And and it'll take the speech input and convert it into text, and then allow you to do it completely hands-free. So that's kind of where we're going, right? Just keep that in the back of your mind, as this is kind of a teaser for that. But I'm excited. David, what do you think?
Kind of the same thing as Judith said. We don't have Flow just yet in the government tenant, so we're kind of waiting on that. But I am excited to see how we can leverage that, like you guys were kind of going over earlier, and how we will go tomorrow, leveraging the phone number to send them a text message instead.
Yep. And we're committed to extending the functionality of your forms and providing these really cool scenarios. Kiara, anything to add?
I don't. It was a good presentation. I'm just taking it all in.
Oh, great.
Thank you.
Thank you. Athena, any feedback for us?
Just kind of the same thing. I'm taking it all in. I like some of the added like encryption and security of this. I think that's also very beneficial to help people feel comfortable with the tool, and maybe will help assist with adoption.
Great to hear that. And last but not least, Arthur, did you have any feedback for us?
I have one quick question. Can we use Twilio in on-premises SharePoint?
Oh yeah, I mean it's once again, this is all can be deployed to an on-prem, and the question is notifications. And so tomorrow we'll show you how to just SMS text them. You'll have to have access to the internet, obviously, for the SMS text make request. But tomorrow we'll show a technique where we're using SMS to notify people as well as send them code, so we don't have to use Flow. And so I think that saying similar to what I was saying to Judith and David, that you have a technique tomorrow that doesn't require Flow. If you have an on-prem version of SharePoint that has a gateway, then you can probably access Flow through the gateway, or you could install this free version of DBXL and do it. But like I said, tomorrow we're going to show a technique that doesn't require sending notifications.
All right.
Great question. Thank you. Okay, everyone, we're going to take a quick 10-minute break, and we'll come back here. We're going to do Lab 2 for Day 2. This is our last lab today, and Kirby's going to be presenting. Thank you so much, Joanne. That was really, really quite wonderful.
Welcome.
I'm going to share out my screen. We'll see everyone back here in about 10 minutes. Let's just do it at 8:30 Pacific, so that's 11:30 Eastern. So we'll make it 13 minutes. Talk to you soon. Okay, we're back. I can hear someone's phone ringing. Thanks for muting. Okay, so it's Patrick again. We are back, and I'm trying to share out my monitor. This GoToMeeting stuff is just driving me crazy today. Okay, let's hopefully you'll be able to see my monitor in a minute. Sorry for the delay. Kirby, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can hear you, Patrick.
Okay, great. So next up, we're going to talk about reusable sections, and then I'm going to do a quick overview and then hand the presenter baton to Kirby to show you. Actually, Kirby, why don't you take the presenter baton right now, and let's do the quick demo, and then we'll come back to my screen. Maybe that will get GoToMeeting to behave.
Okay.
Thanks.
Okay, I'm sharing my screen now. And let me know if you can now see it.
Yep.
You can see your screen, Kirby.
Okay, thanks. So for this lab, we're going to show you how to use the reusable template part for your forms. So for those of you who are not familiar with the template part in InfoPath, so these are reusable portion of a form. So once you create a template part, you can use it wherever you need it. You can apply it in any of your forms or even share it with other forms designer. So here we have the final form of our lab, and I'm going to show you how the template part is used in here. So form is now loading, and okay, so here we have a sample form. So this is our FormsViewer starter form that we have here. And here below, we have this section that is the template part. So this template part contains 4 features. The first one is the upload file attachment. Second is the change or comment log history. And the third one is the admin sections. And the fourth and the last one is the suggestion box. So for the first one, for attaching files, so here we have this section. And then if we click here, the control, and select an image, and click OK, and then click the upload button here, it will upload that to SharePoint. So as you can see, the file is replaced with a link. So this is the same feature that we discussed yesterday during our day 1 of training. So with this, you can upload attachments to SharePoint and replace the attachment with a link and move it to a document library. And that link points to the attachment in the library. So here I will show you where it's uploaded. So I have here the attachments doc library. And the form also creates a folder here that we also demoed yesterday. Create a point folder command. And if we click on that, you'll see here that the receipt is uploaded. Okay. So that's the taxi receipt. And if we try to click on the delete button here, it should delete the image in the attachment stock library. So as you can see here, that the receipt is already deleted by just clicking on the delete button here. So, the benefit of this is that users can access that attachment outside of the form and just view it via the doc library. So the second section here that I'm going to show you is the comment section or the changelog history section. So if I try to enter some text here, and click submit. Okay, so the form is asking me to fill out the form first. And just add random numbers and then click submit. Okay, so you're gonna see here the section here. It says show change history. Okay, so you're going to see here the comment that I added, and if we add another one, let's submit another one, and then click on that again. Okay, you'll see that it's saved again. So this serves as a record of all the changes made to the form. So this is very useful when you want your users to comment or enter details about the change they made before submitting a form. So here it also shows the time and date when the change is made and who made that change. Okay, so the third one I'm going to show you is the admin section. So right
Kirby,
now we're not.
Sorry to interrupt. Can you show them where the comments are saved?
Oh yeah, sure. So the comments are saved in this list. So it's called the change history log. So when we click on that, it's going to show us that the comments are saved as well in SharePoint. Okay. So that's it for the comment section. And then proceeding with the admin section, as you can see, we don't have the admin section here because I'm not an admin. So for me to be an admin, I need to enter myself here in the admins list. And I'm just going to create a new entry here. So then I'm going to type in my name and then click save. And then once my name is in there, I'm going to refresh this form, and this will allow us to view the hidden section or the admin section. So this is very handy if you want some sections to be visible to admins only and hidden to general users. So as you can see here, I've clicked this link to show the sections or the fields that are hidden to general users. So we just added a random fields from the form, and also it shows the values of the admin info from SharePoint. Okay, so the next one I'm going to show you is the suggestion box. So excuse me. So the suggestion box is when you click the light bulb here, so it serves as a toggle. So as you can see, if I click on that, the box is hidden, and so yeah, it's just a toggle for the suggestion box. So if I try to add a suggestion and click the submit suggestion, okay, it will show us this link, and if we click on that link, it will direct us to the submit form that is also included in this package. So this is our suggestion. Okay, so as you can see, we also have this suggestion library where the suggestion is submitted. Okay, so here's my suggestion. So this can be applied in any form. So with this, you can allow users to submit their suggestions or any feedback they may have while using the form. So that's it for the demo, Patrick.
Wonderful, wonderful. Great job. Okay, let me just quickly talk about the benefits again. And one thing that we didn't talk about is the data connections, because it's kind of a hidden feature. Kirby showed those 4 features, but in addition to those 4 features, the XML template part, the reusable section, is actually adding data connections. It's dynamically configuring the data connections when the form opens, and we'll see this when we walk through the lab with you in a minute. Kirby will show you, but basically it's a really cool technique, and FormsViewer supports this. InfoPath didn't support this before, so whenever you published a form from site A to site B, there was part of the publish process would ask you, do you want to fix up the data connections? But if you had data connections that were external to the site, they wouldn't be fixed up. And those forms were not identical. So if you publish a form from site A to site B, the data connections get changed in the template when it's published to site B. What we're showing here is that the template doesn't change, but on load, the data connections get fixed up automatically. So this is what we call dynamic redirect data connections. So as long as your site has the correctly named assets, so change history, suggestions, a library for attachments, then on load, the form detects where it was opened from, and it looks out and tries to connect to those site assets for the attachments, change history and suggestions. And if it finds those, then it uses them. Admin's list was another one. So those dynamic data connections are really, really powerful because it allows you to take a form from a development site. The best practice is to have a site where you test stuff out before you push it to your production environment. So you've got a development environment, potentially a test environment, and also a production environment. So Lisa, you're a developer, so you're testing stuff out in the development environment, and then you hand it off to test, and the testers test it in their test environment, and then the testers say it's good to go, and you publish it to production. So because of that kind of separate environment methodology, this data connection dynamic thing is really powerful, right? Because it allows you to take an XSN form template that was in dev environment, site A, and publish it to the production environment, site B, or if you've got a test environment, you can do that as well. And there's no change needed to the XSN. And this is actually good because whenever you change something, there's a potential of breaking it. So the fact that we're not changing the XSNs when we go from the development environment to the production environment is actually a really cool thing. So I just want to emphasize that. The other thing I wanted to mention was these reusable template parts, they are really nice because they reduce the amount of time. And we're going to see this in a second. Kirby's going to walk through it. But bottom line is that the reusable template parts will save you significant time. And we're going to show another bonus section as well. We're going to show how to debug Q rules. The suggestion box is nice because it provides both the ability for your users to give you feedback, but also to reduce frustration. So whenever you publish like a new process out there to your users, you got a new form. They may not be so happy about that. They're like, well, another process. Why do I have to do this? And they are probably going to complain. It's like, well, why do we have to fill out another form? And so this gives you a little bit of a way to redirect their attention when they complain to you. They say, what's going on, Lisa? Why did you publish this new form? I don't want to fill this out. You say, well, that's great feedback. Click on the little light bulb icon, and please send us that feedback. Right, and they may say, well, I don't want to put my name on it, but you can make it anonymous if you want. But anyway, the point is that it has two purposes. One purpose is to actually get feedback. Like when I filled out the user info form in the previous lab, it didn't look good on my phone. So obviously, whenever you have a bug in your form, you want to be able to capture it right there with minimal effort, and that allows you to capture the feedback quickly. And then the debug section, we'll talk more about that in a second. But any questions on the quick demo or on the overview on these techniques? Kirby, are you ready to walk them through it?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, can you see my screen now?
I think so. Let me check.
Yeah, Kirby. Your screen's now showing.
Okay, so for the lab, we have the starter form as well as the end form. So we also have the XTP or the template part that we're going to insert or inject or insert in our form, and also the suggestion form for the suggestion box. So let me just open the starter form so that you can see how it looks like. So here is a starter form. So we only have a few fields here: the name, the address, and the employee ID, and also for signing the form, the control for that. And so here we also have a few fields here, and the data connections are just the three of these. So how are we going to apply the template part in here? So I'm going to show you how to add the XTP in the InfoPath form. So here in the control section, if we click on the add or remove custom controls, so let's click add and select template part. And then let's browse for that template part that I just showed you, the FB controls. Okay, so once that's added, let's go ahead and put our cursor here. So you can put the template part wherever you want in the form. So if we click the FB controls, this will show us the actual template part. And as you can see, there are a lot of instructions in here. By the way, the lab doesn't have a PDF guide. All of the instructions are already in the template part. So you just need to follow the instructions, and they're very straightforward and easy to apply. So as you can see, there are newly added fields in here in the schema. And also if you check the data connections, there are also added data connections in here that has the FB controls in it. So yeah, that's it's all because of the template part. So one key thing to remember is that you need to inject Q rules in your form because the template part doesn't have Q rules built into it. So to do that, you go to FormsViewer, and I have here a sample form that we can use so that we can show you how to inject Q rules in your forms. So here is our template, and then if we click the design button, this will direct us to the forms designer. And as you can see, FormsViewer is saying that the form does not have Q rules injected. So we need to click this button, inject Q rules. Okay, and that will successfully inject the Q rules in our form. So going back to our form template, let's try to download it and make sure that the Q rules is successfully injected. So if we try to open this, click design. So you'll see here that the Qdabra rules secondary data source is added. So that's how you know that the Q rules is already injected in your form. So since for this starter form, we already have the Qdabra rules, we don't need to inject the Q rules here. So another step that you need to do for this template part, which is also mentioned in the help section, is to change all the instances of temp command and temp result and replace it with the actual Q rules command and result fields. So just a quick overview here. So the command node, as you can see, if we try here, so here's the command node. The command node is the heart of Q rules. So it operates the information that is provided to it, and upon execution of the rules, it puts the result to the result node, which is this one, and clears itself so that it becomes ready for the next command. So going back to replace those temporary fields, let's try to follow one of the steps in here. So here it says go to actions, run finished loading rules, and modify the rule named set SharePoint site URL. So in the first action, replace temp command field being set to point to your Q rules command field. Okay, so let's go ahead and go to the actions node. So the actions node, you can see that in the XTP logic secondary data source. So in here, we have the actions node, and in the run finished loading rules, we have here the set SharePoint site URL. So as you can see here, this command, the get input parameter, has this temp command. So we need to replace that with the actual command field from Qdabra rules secondary data source. So here, okay, and then also this temp result here, we also need to replace that with the result node from Qdabra rules. So that's how you replace the temporary fields. So you just have to repeat the same steps for all the temp commands and temp results that you see in the rules. So so for the number 2 step here, this involves adding a new rule to the finished loading node of Qdabra rules. So it says here that we need to add a new rule in finished loading to set the run finished loading rules field to the value go. So let's go ahead and try to open the end form here so that you can see the rule that is added. Oops. Okay, so this is the run finish loading rules. Okay, so the finished loading node contains all of the rules that are executed on form load. So that means that once your form is opened, it automatically executes these rules while the form loads. So all of these rules are being executed on load. So as you can see, let's try to view the finished loading rules here in XTP logic. Okay, so these are the rules that are responsible for getting the current site where the form is published or uploaded. So to make that possible, we use the get input parameter qrules command to get the needed parameters from the form URL. So as you can see, we have the get input parameter command here, and it retrieves the SP host URL parameter from the form link. So if we try to let's go to our final or the end form. So if we try to open a form, you'll see here that it has the SP host URL parameter, and the value for that is this one, which is the SharePoint site where the form is uploaded or published. So going back to the form, so what qrules does is it gets the value of that parameter from the URL and stores it in a field, which is this one, the SharePoint site URL, because we put the result value there. And that field will be used to replace all the other data connections in the form by using another qrules command called change connection URL. So if we try to go, or if we try to view this other rules in here, you'll see that the change connection URL is being used to change all of the other data connections from our form. So that's how the form automatically detects the location of your current site and points everything to your site. So we use this technique with all of our forms because it saves so much time when you're moving from one site to another. We have one customer who has more than 5 forms, I believe, and they use this technique for their forms when they moved from their test site to their production site. So this is a very powerful technique, which is great for migration. So none of those data connections are needed to be manually changed when you have the get input parameter command in your form. So yeah, so once you're done with all of these steps, you can go ahead and delete the sections, and the instructions also contains the steps in creating the lists and the library that you will be needing for this form or for this template part. So the rest of the steps are very straightforward. If you have time later, please go ahead and follow these instructions if you're interested in applying any of these features to your forms.
You say it takes about 10 minutes?
Yeah, I think it would take it could be 15 minutes or so. Yeah.
Do you want to show them the signature control? We didn't really talk about that, but the sample form has a signature control. Maybe you can open that up and show that.
Yeah, I can
The
show
signature
that.
control is not part of our training this time around. We have featured it in previous training in September of 2017. We showed how to add this. This is an interesting control because it's an example of an extension in the form where you're actually adding a little bit of JavaScript to your form. And InfoPath doesn't support JavaScript extensions, but FormsViewer does. You can just add a resource with the JavaScript file, and then you can call it using these buttons. Might make sense, Kirby, to show them the, if you export the source files out, can you show them where the actual custom logic is?
Okay, so if you click on this button, you won't see any rules in here because the actual rules or the codes are coming from, where is it? Here, the signature.js. So if we try to, okay, let me just export the source files and put it in here. Okay, so here's the JavaScript file. Okay. So
there's two JavaScript files. Yeah, sorry, Kirby. You can just use this as is. You don't need to write your own JavaScript. In this case, you can just use our signature control. We've got two JavaScript files, this one and the other one. But you can also see how you would extend your forms if you are a developer. I know, Lisa, you're a developer, and there might be other developers on the call. It's pretty easy to do that using this load resource command. And then the way you call it, do you remember how it is called from that button, Kirby? Is it in the HTML? I forget.
I think it's in the JavaScript file. I'm not sure.
There's an on-click handler though in the XSLT where it talks about which file to call. Can you actually open up the view in the Notepad? Yeah, I think it's just view 1, XSL. Well, whatever the view's called. What is the view called?
Wait, let me just check.
Yeah, that's easier.
Desktop. But I'm not sure where it's.
It's got to be the desktop. Just click on the desktop one and just search for the button name or signature. I'll do it. I should do it. Well, we have documentation on this. I didn't mean to completely get us off track here, but there is a document, a lab to show you how to do this, and it does talk about how the button actually calls the code. And I believe there's actually a little bit of an on-click handler in the XSLT maybe it's in the CSS, maybe that's where it is. But if you're interested in extending your forms, we did a webinar on this a year and a half ago, and we also included it in our training in September of 2017. And that training and those webinar files are available on our website. To get the training, you just go to InfoPath.dev, downloads, and it'll be the training we did for 2.2 or 2.3. And then the webinar is the one we did. Jimmy did it in August of 2017. You can download the webinar package. I just wanted to kind of tell people about that in case you're looking at that wondering, wonder what that is. That signature control is pretty powerful. And we actually did a webinar recently where we showed the signature control with mobile. So it works just great with glass. So if you want to capture someone's signature, you can do it that way.
Hi, Patrick. This is Joanne. Just want to add in that there's a blog. We uploaded the steps for that, and I've just pasted in the link in the chat for anyone who wants to read on that.
Great. Do you want to quickly show that page just to Curry? Maybe you can click on the link since you've got the presenter. Can you just click on the link that Joanne pasted there in the chat window? Just to show people where this is. So it's September 5th, 2017, how to add signature control. And this is all should be in the, I don't know if this is in the FormsViewer downloads or not, but anyway, there's the blog post that Mel did. So one other technique we want to talk about is the debug section. So Kirby, do you want to go ahead and add the debug section for Q rules to your form that you just created and show them how that works? Maybe add it to the admin section.
Okay, sure. So here's the, wait, let me just reopen the form. Okay, so let's go ahead and add the Curul's history log. We can see it in here under execution history, and then where's the admin section? Okay, so here we'll just add the history, just drag and drop the repeating table, and then that's just how you add the debug history. And then if we save that and upload that to FormsViewer, okay. So if you click the show admin controls, you'll see here that this is the command history or the Curul's history that we just added. So it shows us all of the rules that are passed on to the command node, and you'll see all of the results here. And if the commands are successfully executed. So this is very useful if you want to debug your form. And yeah, Patrick?
Great. Okay, so let's wrap this up. First of all, any questions or feedback for Kirby or me on the second lab today? So once again, as Kirby mentioned, there's no documentation file, there's no PDF. You have to just add the XTP to your form, and then you'll have the documentation in the XTP. And I want to emphasize once again that the XTP is, it includes 4 different things, right? It includes the data connections, it includes the view components, it includes the logic, and it includes the fields in the data in the data source. So, you know, it's really a huge time saver for you, and that's why we added it. And we're going to see another one tomorrow that does it for Twilio. There's a couple different caveats with XTPs. One is that you can't add them more than once. If you add them more than once, that sometimes the main data source fields get screwed up because it sees the previous one there and it doesn't want to overwrite it, so it creates _2 as a name at the end of all the fields. So just keep that in mind, that you really only want to add it once, and if you add it twice, it'll change the main data source fields because it'll try not to overwrite the previous one, and that in turn can lead to a lot of problems. So just if you do add it once and make a mistake, just go ahead and start again from scratch. It doesn't take that much time anyway. The other thing to keep in mind is that you can create these XML template parts yourself. So let's say you have a process. You can take our FV controls and say, well, I really want the data connection thing, but I don't care about the admin section. Then you can take out the admin section and you can repurpose that XTP to be your specific one. If you have a section in your form that you want to see in every single form, you can actually create an XML template part yourself. And we've done this training on this. If you are interested in that, the InfoPath Designer will allow you the ability to create these XTPs. You start the designer, and one of the options on the open screen is you can actually create a template part. We've done training on this in the past, so if you're kind of interested in that, let us know, because we can show you how to do that. Maybe we'll look at it again tomorrow. But yeah, it's a huge time saver. So, you know, mainly it's those logic, all of the logic that sets things up, does the curls commands. You don't have to remember all that. You can just add the XTP, configure it, and you're done. So 10 to 15 minutes, you're done, and you've got all this extra functionality. So that's really the main thing to underline here with the second lab today is it's really meant to be a time saver for you, and because you're going to be adding a lot of functionality to your forms, and you don't want to have to remember all the steps because it's too many steps. So that's why we create the XTP. So let's get some quick feedback from you on that. And as we did yesterday, we kind of ended the class and we just let you go off and do the labs. I think we'll do the same thing today. We are available, so it's specific. I'm going to be available for the rest of the day. So if you are working on the labs and you get stuck, you can just email course manager at qdabra.com, or you can email me directly, and we'll get someone to help you get them blocked. Kirby and Joanne, I want to thank them very much for doing this demos for day 2 and for preparing all the labs for you. They've been great job today, really very polished, really impressed. I know you guys added a bunch of cool little things too, like that inject cure rules form. That was really nice to see that. So let's get some feedback from our attendees though. Let's see, Arthur, do you want to go first? Do you have any takeaways for the day?
I just want to say thank you to presenters, and I learned many new things today, especially that dynamic data connections are very useful thing, in my opinion.
And then if you're wondering, why didn't you add that to FormsViewer Design tab as part of a feature, we're going to be doing that this year. So we talked about, we're going to be adding curls. Inject curls are going to be automatic, starting probably in 4.1 version of curl of FormsViewer. We're going to be adding a wizard in the FormsViewer Design page so that you can just click a button and it'll ask you which data connections do you want to make dynamic. So you won't have to go through this XTP process in the future for that feature. We're going to be adding it directly to FormsViewer. We're also going to be adding the QRules debug stuff, so you're going to be able to see the commands. Yeah. Stay tuned to this channel. You know, 4.1 comes out. 3.3 is our current target release for sometime in February, and then 4.1 will be out probably at the end of Q1. And you'll see some of these features start to show up in the FormsViewer Designer, and you'll wonder, well, you know, why did you put that in training? Well, it's because we didn't have it then. So when we add that to FormsViewer in April or whenever, we'll take it out of the training and we'll just show you via FormsViewer how to add the data connection dynamicness. Thanks for your feedback, Arthur. Athena, anything from you?
I just think there's a lot of things that I've seen presented today that would have been helpful to us in the past if we would have known, like with the form parts and things like that. I'm definitely excited about the stuff that I've learned today because I think we'll be able to apply some of it.
Oh, great to hear that. Kiara.
Yeah, I don't have anything to add. It was very interesting. I definitely think it'll be very helpful. And thank you for your time.
Oh, great to hear that. Thank you for the feedback. David.
I really like the reusable templates and the dynamic data connections. I think that'll be very helpful, especially in terms of migration stuff, because we're actually in the middle of migrating a lot of our sites over to the cloud. So hopefully we can leverage that in the process.
And that's actually what, when Kuru was mentioning those 5 forms for one of our large power generating companies that we serve, that was exactly their scenario. So they've got a dev and production scenario as well, but for a lot of customers, you know, moving, you know, 100 forms to the cloud, you know, it really does help out a lot. In 10 minutes, you add that XTP, you know, you ignore the other sections, just delete them. But for the data connections thing, you just fix up that one thing. And you can, or you can just hone down the XTP to be just that feature. Now, you're going to have to identify which data connections you want to you know, change on load, and you have to make sure that those data connections aren't being loaded automatically. So we'll go into data connections, you know, uncheck it from being queried on load, because you want to put that in a rule. Right before you query it, you want to make sure that you're fixing up that connection URL first, and then querying it.
Okay, perfect. Awesome, thank you. Appreciate that.
Yeah, Deanna?
Just the same as everybody else. I found everything today very helpful and extremely useful. And the same as what David was just saying, the data connections and the information you just provided about that too is going to be very useful for us too when we migrate to the cloud.
Great. And it looks like Lisa dropped off, and I think we lost one other person. But we'll be making the video available again, and look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. Don't forget the labs. Try to do something, and give us some feedback on those. Tomorrow, just to quickly give you something to think about. Tomorrow we're going to be looking at extending that SMS solution to get rid of the notifications with the one-click access. We'll talk about dashboards tomorrow. We're going to be using the expense report form, and we're going to add a dashboard to show you data from that, I believe. So look forward to seeing you there tomorrow, and I hope you have a wonderful day. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thanks, everyone.
Have a great day, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you.
Way to go, Kirby. Way to go, Joanne.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks, Patrick.